welcome to the AAF Lunch and Learn today. We are having a little technical difficulties with one of the speakers, so give us just a minute to work that out. But in the meantime, my name is Priscilla McKinney. I am the president of this chapter, and you, yes, you, could be me. So this is how I like to start all of our lunch and learns. Are you interested in volunteering with our organization? We strive to not only make this industry a better place, but also to carve a path for students who are coming into this and making sure that we're making this industry dynamic and connected and really always leading with best practices. So that's something that we try and do with American Advertising Federation. Our chapter is Heartland. So thank you for coming. Today we have our sponsor, KSN KODE. So I want to thank them for sponsoring this event. They also had sponsored our ad awards, which is an important part of our year. So huge thank you to them. Obviously, you know, TV in the Midwest is still a big part of marketing and advertising, but more than anything, it's everybody doing a little bit to help the whole. So today, before I hand this over to Chris, who's going to lead the rest of this lunch and learn, I just want to call out to you who's in the room who are board members. So obviously Chris Wilson, he's a member of the board. We have Tracy Hughes with us today, who is the treasurer. And we have Katie George, who is the VP. And Ashley's not here today, but she usually is. She's the secretary. We also have Justin Oden from Downstream, Barry Linda from Downstream, and Tim Bade from Marlin Network. So thank you to everybody who serves on the board and tirelessly makes these kinds of things happen. I really appreciate all of your work. And we have some great events coming up. We have the whole summer filled with lunch and learns, and we would also like to hear back from you what it is you would like to hear about. These can be incredibly informal. Today, we're gonna hear about photography and two different sides of the same coin, but we're here to make this really beneficial for you. We try and keep a format very short so that you can grab a lunch, and we know you have to get back for work. So just if you want to volunteer for anything for the AAF chapter, I'm telling you right now, we will not overcome your life, but we would sincerely like to have your help. Meetings are super short, and I always say a lot of hands makes the work light. So even if you can spare 2 hours this year to help us with either membership or with an event, or there's always small things that we need done. We'd love to have your time, and a small amount of time absolutely works for us. So Chris, thank you so much for putting this event together. It's super nice to have so many different perspectives and have different people pulling from their networks. And I will come back in at the end. We do have 2 cool giveaways today. So thank you for attending. And how this is going to work is I'll have a number for everybody who's in at the very end, and everybody, even board members, y'all eligible, y'all give y'all your time, everybody's eligible to win, but I will actually pull 2 different numbers out of the random number generator. I'll show them to you. And I like to give away prizes because it's just fun. But not to detract from what we're here to do on our lunch and learn. So back to you, Chris. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Cool, thanks, Priscilla. Let's do a quick audio check on Mike and Jarrod. Can you guys both unmute yourselves real quick and give me a little shout out?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Oh, one of your, so Mike, we have you on 3 screens. One of them is muted. Priscilla, as a host, can you unmute him?
I can only ask to unmute, so I did that for him. So hopefully,
how about that?
There we go. Awesome. All right.
We got it. I love how there's 3 shots of Mike. Cool. Well, thanks, Mike, everyone.
Mike, you'll have
still from the computer.
Yeah, there's. I think it seems like it's your phone is the one that's working. So right. I don't know if you want to grab those other ones off just so we don't get an echo. So, okay, sorry, back to you, Chris.
Cool, we'll figure it out.
All
right, well, well, the audio works, so we'll take it, right? Cool. All right, well, quickly, while we kind of get that all set up, I think we're in a good spot, but I'll give you guys just a quick overview on me. I think I'm the newest member of the Ad Club board, and so I might be a new face to most of you guys, but Chris Wilson, I grew up in Western Kansas, came over to Pitt State for college, went through the program there. Shout out to my Pitt State folks in the room. I see you. And from there, moved over to Springfield, started with Bass Pro Track and Marine Group right out of college. Spent a good chunk of time there, about 8 years, worked in different creative capacities with mainly design. And then eventually moved to Kansas City, worked still in the outdoor industry for Bushnell Outdoor Products, Vista Outdoor, that whole company up there. But then I got called back to Bass Pro and back to Springfield, and was leading one of the creative teams there when I came back about 5 years ago, and was doing that up until last year. I'm now creative director at Major League Fishing, which is still outdoor industry, fishing centric, kind of my sweet spot where I've found myself pretty comfortable and happy. So that's a good place, I think. We've got today Jarrod and Mike. And so Jarrod, you want to briefly do a little intro about kind of who you are and what your background is?
Sure. Well, I'm Jarrod, obviously. I am the staff photographer at Little Bird Marketing. I've been there for, goodness, what has it been now? I think a little bit over a year. Before that, I was with Clear Marketing in Branson until Priscilla scooped us up. So yeah, I've been doing commercial photography for about coming on 5 years now. And before that, I did lots of freelance and portrait work. Went to Missouri State for advertising, or graduated with a degree there. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here today.
Awesome. And Mike, you want to do a quick little intro?
Sure. I'm Michael Engelmeyer. I'm the owner of Great Outdoors Studios, and we originally started in St. Louis, Missouri, and then moved back down here because of the amount of boats that we do. We've been in business for 27 years, which seems way, way too quick, but it's true. And we're just plodding through it and happy to be on here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I met Mike years ago through Bass Pro and the boat business there. Worked with him quite a bit, and always had a great time. And then I can remember seeing Jarrod's work at the Addy Awards, just cleaning house in the photography department through Clear. And so that's awesome. Both these guys are very, very talented. So today, kind of the topic that we're going to be kind of dancing around is really kind of content, the differences between kind of like being on staff at an agency or even in-house versus being freelance, kind of the pros and cons and just the differences there. Talking about the evolution of content and just how much change there's been even in the recent history, but especially from 27 years ago with Mike and where he began, and just all the things that have kind of come from that. We shouldn't have any problems talking for 30 minutes or so around this topic, and certainly at the end of it, we'll open it up for questions and hope that you guys will have some questions to ask these folks. So that being said, I want to ask, I'll start with Jarrod, just talk about the differences between, so you are on staff full-time at an agency versus Mike being kind of a freelancer. What would you say is one of the biggest differences there?
Sure. Well, I think the largest difference is that I just get to take the work that my wonderful boss gives me, and I don't have to go sell or anything like that. That's not one of my strong points. I'm great at photos, but I think that's one of the huge differences. I remember when I did a little bit of portrait freelance before I worked in commercial, was that the selling portion was difficult for me. It was, I don't know, I'm not sure why, but I definitely enjoy just taking the work and suggesting clients that I would love to work with, and letting them do that, and then scooping up that work and making it mine whenever it comes my way. So I do enjoy that aspect. I also think it's, as a freelancer, you work for yourself and your own brand and your client. Whereas in an agency, I work for, not only doing good work for myself, but also making sure I represent Priscilla's brand correctly, as well as the client too. So you have a few different people you're working for, instead of maybe just yourself and a client. So I think those two things stand out to me quite a bit.
Sure, for sure. Now, Mike, you've been in it, a number of years, like you said. Any regrets? I mean, do you wish that you would have gone on staff somewhere? I'm sure you've had opportunities along the way. Or, what are the things that you just love about being independent?
I don't know if anybody would have me on staff. Chris, you're my boss. You've been my boss. There's pluses and minuses. Jarrod's a great example. Sometimes when you're getting your paycheck and somebody's doing the sales work, it's very liberating as an artist to create and focus on your craft. And there's a weird duality that I'd always had in the fact that I love the business side of it, but I also love the creative side of it. So we're bouncing back from two different hemispheres of the brain. And I tell Sandy, our studio manager, I tell her, it's like, I'm in this side of my brain. And so I'm engaging with people. I'm out there hustling. I'm following up. I've got to do a bunch of it today. I actually have to wear both hats today because I'm in the middle of a boat shoot today. But I also have to follow up with calls because I like people and I like to get out there. So for me, it's a good balance. I don't think I think that's a little bit different than most artists just like to create. And the funny thing is, Chris, on any given day, I don't know what it is. There's days when I just want to immerse myself in the work, but I have to go out and talk and sell and figure out bids and get with Sandy and do meetings. And I don't want to. And then there's other days that I do want to, and I don't feel like creating. And any artist knows that feeling of you've got stuff to do, but you're forced to create. For me, it's a pretty nice balance because on any given day, I switch my hat and then I'm in artist mode. But bouncing in between the two can be tough for sure. So to answer the question, on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm like, man, I wish I worked in a house. I could just show up and shoot and create and not be distracted. And then I have wonderful lunch meetings. I have wonderful phone calls with great people in our industry. And I'm like, I love this. I love this. I could do that instead of, so I like both. And so it fits for me.
Nice. Very cool. So let's get into kind of the actual content that you guys make, and really I want to talk about how much that has changed over the years, and even recently. Obviously, Mike, you've been in a little bit longer than Jarrod, but Jarrod, in the few years you've been in the business, what are some of those changes? I mean, how has that affected your day-to-day and what you're being asked to deliver?
Sure. I think Mike will have a lot of insight about this, just, with his tenure in it. But I think in the last 5 years or so, we've seen a lot more demand for not just photos, but also video work. It's almost like it's expected to be together, right? Whereas before, when I first started, like we would book a lot of photo shoots, but video was never on the menu, right? It wasn't really a huge demand, but I don't know what shifted. Maybe it's just as we grow more digital, as we grow more short of attention, I guess video might grab it a little bit better. So I think it's expected now that video and photos come together.
Sure.
And for pretty much any kind of field. I mean, we've done video for food work. We've done video for, resort rooms or things like that. Like they'll take video for anything. So that's the biggest change for me.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So Mike, how has technology, just over the past 27 years, just changed and changed the way you guys approach your business?
Yeah, continuing off what Jarrod said, and Chris, you obviously know this from our work together, there's always this push and pull on crew sizes, on big jobs, small jobs, whatever. And as the hybridization of that technology where, kind of starting with the original Canon 5D, all of a sudden, wow, we can do great moving pictures from it. And when years ago, when I was almost all video, I'm like, wow, someday I bet they're going to create a camera that can capture great stills and beautiful video in the same unit. What does that do? And then you see that come to pass. And with the need for more content, it's the supply and demand thing. So at that point, if you can cut your budget in half and have Jarrod out there capturing gorgeous stills and then spinning around and picking up wonderful B-roll in the same day, and you don't have 5 people, but you have one eye and a consistent brand messaging with your visuals, how could a creative director not want that? You know what I mean? And that's what we're really seeing, kind of the confluence of technology with this next generation. And I think it's been perpetuated by social media tremendously, in the fact, and one of the companies that I work for, they will post 8 times a day, 8 to 12 times, but it's usually 8 times a day. At that point, a traditional commercial photography shoot that is expected to turn out 8 to 10 pictures a day and might cost an arm and a leg, you're going to whittle through that in a day. So there's got to be a way to maximize that time and that money spent.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like the lines between roles is getting blurred across the entire industry. So I'm traditionally I'd say my background is print design, but you can't just be a print designer anymore. You've got to know social, you need to know digital, you need to know motion. I mean, the more the merrier. I think it's, even when I'm hiring designers, I'm looking for Swiss Army knives, folks who can come in and help with an animation, but also a print brochure. And then also understand how social is different from everything. So it really crosses kind of all aspects of the entire advertising industry, where it's really tough to get away with being a one-trick pony. As specialized as we'd like to be, it's almost like the industry demands more from all of us. I'm sure a lot of you guys in the room here can relate to that.
Yeah, it's interesting that
Yeah.
he would mention the social media, where like a company will go through, all of your photos in a day or a week. And I think that was something we experienced really early on, and kind of set a standard to where if we were running social media or digital campaigns for clients, that we actually would shoot extra, just so we would have a backlog of things to use, and we weren't stretched for reusing the same photos. So I think that's a standard we've set a long time ago, was that we pretty much over deliver on photos when we do them, just for the sake of digital use, because it's so.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Did you have something?
Yeah, Jarrod, to your point, one of the things that we found out that is pretty interesting is, let's say you have, for a boat manufacturer, not even that long ago, you've got, say, 3 or 4 outlets for your visuals. So say you have 3 bass boat magazines. The clients expect a 90 to 100% quality on that. They're investing a tremendous amount of money in those magazines, and they're going to be seen a bunch of times over and over and over and over and over. They're going to commit to that. So they want it to be 90 to 100%. And so your perfectionist self, if you were raised with a perfectionist self, and the longer guys like myself in it, a lot of them haven't had the ability to adapt, because a lot of the social, they want 60 to 80%. And I'm talking about quality. So instead of setting up 6 to 10 lights, and it's half a day to get one marquee shot, one ad shot, those clients would much rather have, and I may be preaching to the choir, but I'm just tossing it out there, is those clients would much rather have a volume of 60 to 80% work that they can keep in front, because of these numerous outlets that are being seen with eyes. And that's a hard thing. A lot for the old timers, we've been pretty good, because I like the business side, and so we pay attention to pivoting pretty strong. But I know some of my contemporaries and some that I grew up with, they feel that it's really been devalued. But the reality is 60 to 80% is good enough to make them stop, on the site. They're not being viewed for the same 6 months that the magazine might be, that goes to the barber shop and then it gets repurposed and somebody. So there's just so many more avenues, and with that comes volume. You just have to have volume.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow for creatives to be okay with that quantity over quality, because we want everything that we produce to be as good as it can be. And when you have to, take a shortcut or settle for something that you're not happy with, I'm sure we've all been there. Sometimes that's just what you got to do. At the end of the day, sometimes good enough is good enough, and you just have to move on to the next one. But that is tough, and it's one of those things. I'm sure a lot of us have heard that kind of equation. You've got quality, speed, and was it cost? So it can't be cheap, fast, and good. You pick two of those things, and but it can't be all three. And so that's a really tough dynamic. I know that I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of folks in the room do too. So talk to me about competition now versus what it has been, and how you guys have adapted your approaches to business, and even competing for positions with other folks who are willing or able to come in and shortcut it, or shortchange it. I'm not going to say shortcut, but offer something somewhat comparable for so much less. We'll throw to Jarrod on this. I know that we talked about this the other day.
Yeah, obviously we see now that smartphones are extremely great at taking photos, and I think competition has increased dramatically. It may not be necessarily like, how do I put it, like competition at our level, but it's, I don't think, I'm trying to put this in the correct words here. It's a little bit to what Priscilla put into the chat here. It's like separating yourself. Like, how do you show your quality over somebody who's just really good with a smartphone, or somebody who's just really good with like really basic stuff? And I think it's a tough line to tread. I think it comes down to staying up on technique. It's staying up on composition trends. It's staying up on advertising trends and what people are looking for when they're online. But yeah, we've definitely seen, just recently, we've seen some competition maybe undercut us and pick up clients that maybe we had before or something. But it's out there, and you have to adapt technique wise. I think that's, for me, that's something that's driven me, is to stay up on trends, is to know my gear better, know what I'm going for better, and be ready to give clients great quality, but with volume as well. So,
gotcha. Just to kind of put a bow on that competition topic, Mike, obviously I'm sure that you've had some encounters recently, but even from years past, how has that, I guess, I don't know if it's the caliber of competition or really how that's changed. I'm sure you've always been competing with somebody for a job. How is that different now than maybe in the past?
It is different, and I apologize. The way I've got this set up on my phone instead of the computer, I cannot see questions and chats. It comes up on my screen real quick and then disappears. So I know that there's probably some in there. So
yep, I'll bring them up.
Okay,
yep.
So I'm not ignoring that. Our attack is different, and I strongly, for the young creatives out there, just from experience, to embrace this thought, because it's not negating Jarrod's thought at all, because I think that's very valid also. We found on introspection and looking internally, if we're losing clients or we're losing something that we didn't think we would, what we're doing and have been doing actually for a really long time is we made our place in the industry, and we've been in business for 27 years because of focusing on a niche or two that has a high gateway to entry. It is not accessible to everyone. Okay. And therefore, we find that we are not competing when photographers get on, and I'll use social media as an example, they're seeing all of the other photographers highlight portfolios. Okay. So a creative director opens that up and they're seeing the best of the best of the best straight across the board. But if you're the guy and say I'm the best guy at shooting pictures of aardvarks and video of aardvarks, you know, if I'm that guy, those creative directors are going to find me because the world is smaller and connectable. So what we'll do is with boats, you have to have an indoor space. So our studio space is 10,000 square feet, 30-foot ceilings. They will find us because it's not that common. It's not something that you can go to Best Buy, buy a camera in a 10,000 square foot studio. So we focus a lot on the higher gateway to entry in the niche markets. So our competition is much less. Okay. It's not to say that it's not there, but it's more traditional in that sense. And we had found that when we increase our quality by embracing technology, we can push ahead in some cases. But the reality of the situation is there's some phenomenally talented 20-year-olds in college that are cranking out great work and embracing the technology. If they have the business mind, absolutely, they can absolutely find a spot in the industry. So we pay attention to niche markets that we really love. That tends to help a lot on the competition. I like competition personally. So I embrace it, and I just know that you just lose some and you just win some. And that's part of the deal. We throw a lot, if we're looking for new clients, we throw a lot of lead in the air. And we don't ever take it personally because there's just a lot of options of really great visual storytellers. I mean, there's more so than ever in history.
That's a good point, Mike. I failed to realize or to think about that, like where your company focuses strictly on photography, Little Bird has also a value add in all the other services that we provide. So where we provide graphic design, and we'll provide digital ads, and Priscilla's coined digital transformation. Those things are huge value adds for the clients that we might pick up for photography and add on later. And a lot of the times we find clients through those other means and then add on photography as well. So I think you're right. I think we fit as an agency offering photography. That's our niche. So
I think that and we do, we're big into 3D animation. We're big into the other things as well. We just got known as still advertising within the outdoors industry. But the way that you all are set up is the future. That is the way. It's not going to go back. It's just going to become more streamlined the way you all are set up, period. There's still going to be big productions in Dallas, New York, and those areas where it's an industry. Those things are slow to change, but the lean, nimble, and high quality driven stuff that you all crank out is going to be the future, and it's going to serve 90% of the client needs, and it's only going to increase from what you do. That's the template right there, is where you guys sit.
Well, that was a mic drop shout out to us. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no.
I wanted to try to kind of wrap the session talking about kind of like the rewards or kind of the benefits of still going that extra mile for quality, knowing that Mike and Jarrod have certainly put a lot of their career and effort into producing really high-end work and not necessarily sacrificing anything to get that quantity. So, I mean, talk to me about, why is quality worth it, right? So why is it worth the effort to still produce the best work and not cut corners?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important because at least for the clients that I've worked with, they're aware of high quality work and low quality. I think I don't put it past them to notice little things that might be that maybe we missed on the shoot or something like that, but they are very aware of quality. They almost all the time know what they want. And what's good is if you can deliver that quality with some volume and with some speed, they remember when you can do that, and they will come back. We experienced that with clients in the past, that they remember you as knowing their brand. They remember you as representing their brand correctly and with quality.
Well, we do have a lot of great questions in the chat. So, oh man, when I logged out, I lost the ones from earlier. What was it? I remember Kristen asked a question about how do you get new clients, right, when you're doing freelance? And so, Mike, I'll let you kind of talk to this. And I guess especially from like a cold call type thing where you don't necessarily have a connect, or how do you get those connections so that you can actually have somebody to talk to?
It's interesting because I'm actually going through this in a little bit, and I've kind of got to go back in my memory bin a little bit to when I first started, because like I said, we focused on our outdoor niche, and it is a small industry. So after a while, if you, like Jarrod said, if you're consistently turning out good work and you're easy to work with and you're relational, then people tend to remember you, and you get your name gets spread around pretty well. But going back to the question, I'm kind of voracious in the fact of if I want something, it still becomes a challenge. I love that type of thing. And so in this case, I have a company, and I've talked to the owner and the president several times over the course. He's familiar with our work, but we just heard that the marketing director, that they're looking for a big volume of work. And it's one of our traditional style clients. And so I talked to Sandy, the studio manager. We just brainstorm out ideas of who do we know in that industry? Who do we know that works for that company? And I literally just started, and I don't really take no for an answer without being annoying. But if this door shuts, I'll go to this door. I'll email. Email is really poor as far as reaching somebody. It really needs to be interpersonal, showing up. And if you show, like this company is in Arkansas, if I just drive down there and knock on the door, which is how I got started in the fashion industry, I was getting frustrated because my phone calls weren't being returned. And so I just hopped in my car and showed up. And a lot of times they remember you if you come in prepared and like, well, yeah, you didn't answer my call, so I figured you were busy. So I just showed up. I'm in the neighborhood. And that was easy in Chicago and St. Louis and Dallas and Miami and those places like that, because they really appreciated that you showed up in person. It wasn't in the way. Sometimes you'd have to wait. But I think that the problem, to Kristen's question, is that most people, especially if they come from the inside job, if they came from an inside job where they have an 8-to-5 job and then they go freelance, they give up too quick. That is far and away the biggest thing. They get their stuff printed, they do a bunch of emails, they get into LinkedIn, they throw a bunch of stuff up on social media, but they're not doing relational stuff to make somebody remember you. And that's non-corona, that's a handshake, and that's a genuine discourse back and forth. That's showing that you're going to go the extra mile. It's super easy just to email a bunch of people. And so I always like to talk to somebody in person. I like to take them out to breakfast. I like to take them out to lunch or meet with what we're doing. So if I'm working in the fishing industry, and which is what happened, and I happened to be on another job for Toyota, and I knew the president of the company was sitting over at the bar by himself. And they were pointing out that's the owner of the company. And I just walked up to him and I said, hey, we have mutual friends in common, and here's my card. I'm not looking for work right now, but I want you to know who I am if I call you. And he really appreciated it. We just shot the bull for a while. I have honed those sales techniques to help people remember me. And I'm also really tall, so it's a little bit different. You know, people tend to remember abnormally tall people, but I enjoy that. And so I think that is the answer. I think most freelancers, they give up too quick. I think they shoot a bunch of emails out and they get frustrated and they do a bunch of phone calls and they don't get answered because everybody's busy. You got to go the extra mile to get noticed.
Gotcha. That's great. Another question from the chat here. You know, with digital technology, everyone seems to think they're a professional photographer. How do you showcase your work and communicate the value of skilled photography and quality equipment? Let's start with Jarrod on this one.
Man, that is a big question. I think the value of good equipment is really noticed, one, by the photographer more than anyone, I think. I think the average user spending time looking at something online is probably not going to notice the big difference between what's output by a professional camera by maybe what's just from a cell phone. But I think professionals in the industry, especially clients who know what they're looking for, know what good quality is. And I think really, to me, it makes my job easier using professional equipment than it would be using something that's lower end. I think I can reach a higher quality end result with better equipment than I can with something that's not as good. But I think that's the ultimate struggle now, as the gap between technology gets smaller and smaller. Your return on investment on really great equipment is starting to shrink as well. You won't see that massive difference like you may have in the past. And that's the ultimate struggle now, is we just keep improving and improving and doing good work for people. And I think that's what gets noticed.
Great. There was another question about professional relationships, you know, more like a partnership than a vendor. And I think Mike touched on that pretty well. I know that he's made that a big part of his personal brand, is just ensuring that those personal relationships are kind of at the forefront and prioritized. I do think that can differentiate good from great, right? If you have two on paper quality photographers or creatives or whatever, it kind of comes down to, you know, professional relationships and personality and personability and all of that. So I think that is certainly something that folks should prioritize, especially if they're in freelance trying to get clients.
To your point, Chris, because kind of what you're saying is one of the things that we pay real close attention to with our crews. And that is, and I think this is pretty valuable advice. I think as creators and as artists, it's important to have a very natural empathy. Okay. And I think that if you're coming in as an artist or a creator and you're self-centered, and you're driven in I do great things, that those relationships tend to be short-lived, or they tend to be, okay, it is what it is. If I come to you and I have a genuine empathy to your problems or your concerns, these boats, these, say, binoculars, these aren't getting the love. And say, Chris, when you and I worked at Bushnell, and say it's something like birding, you know, the birding binoculars, they're not getting the love. Is if I have a genuine empathy going, how do we do this? How do you and I work together to make this really a big deal? And I'm not lying, I have a genuine empathy as an artist and a creator to where you are. I think it's pretty strong. I think that if most creators and artists have that wonderment and that sense of curiosity and that sense of empathy, I think that you can really move the needle. And I'm not speaking in a capitalist sense. I think we're just charged to have that, and then it comes naturally after that.
Yeah. So there's another equipment question. So do you ever use drones to get shots? And, you know, what's the quality like for those images now? And then how difficult is that process to manage? I'm assuming that you guys might be hiring that out because it is pretty specialized. But are you guys using drones, Jarrod, in your line of work? Are you a drone operator?
Yeah, we actually have one, and we use it sparingly. Most of the time, the stuff that we're shooting for doesn't call for it too often. I know that we were doing a lot of golf courses with Clear Marketing. That was it was really common to use the drone, and then sometimes resort stuff also calls for it as well. But drones are interesting because I think drones really excel in video creation, because you can shoot 1080 with a drone or 4K with a drone, and it looks really great. I think some of the lower end drones really struggle with photos, because like, for instance, I think I'm trying to get too techy, but I think like the Phantom line of DJI drones is equivalent to like a cell phone camera when you're taking photos. So it's not greatest for it's not the greatest for photos in a commercial sense, but I think they work really great for video. I've got some friends and then some work acquaintances that use some really high-end equipment for photography, especially golf photography and drone work, and you can really tell the difference there.
Yeah, coming from a boat background, drones, where in the past to get that high angle that you needed, you're talking about hiring a helicopter, and that gets real expensive real quick. Anymore, drone quality is getting better and good enough, and even the speed, that was kind of the limiting factor, was just keeping up with the faster boats. You still had to hire that helicopter to keep up with the really fast bass boats. But even, anymore, those things are getting pretty quick, so it's probably just a matter of time. So about equipment, someone had asked how much Mike had to invest in his equipment when he first started. Mike, are you back? Are you with us?
On this side, I'll toss this out because it is interesting. What Jarrod said is drones are a huge chunk of what we do, and I'm super thankful for them, but we subbed everything out. We don't have any drones here, but we have about 10 drone operators to sub out. It is huge on the boats, and it's huge on the trucks, and it's huge. It's just a necessary part of it on both stills and video, but like Jarrod said, video, but it's a major player now, and we're happy to plug those guys that are really good in. And we've got the high speed drones too, which is crazy. We just used one that are doing 65 plus miles an hour and dive bombing and up, and it's insane, but I love it. But as long as I don't have to mess with it, and as long as I don't have to get a helicopter anymore, I'm pretty happy. So it used to be the hiccup was the gateway to entry on professional photography or video was the hurdle of the cost of the equipment. In the film days, then most definitely the computers and digital, but especially in the film days. So you have to, I'll tell you what I did. What I did was, since I knew I could get the work, but there's no way that anybody would take me serious with what I had at the time, is I partnered with a great studio, and I told the owner of the studio, hey, if I get work for you, will you work a deal out with me to allow me to use your equipment so I don't look like a complete idiot when I show up at the job? I might look like an idiot anyway, but I at least will have the right gear. And he loved that idea because he didn't have a salesperson. And so I got like 3 jobs for him. And then he pretty much opened his studio and said, Hasselblads, whatever. And then it was funny because he turned around and assisted for me, which I loved because I was still a little bit nervous and still not as confident. And to have a guy with 30 years of experience that was intimate with his equipment, assist me, was like a mentor helping me along. And that was huge, but you have to think creatively on how do I do that. So after my first 2 or 3 big billings with his top of the line equipment, then I set aside money from those billings to invest back in my own equipment. Because it was a real hurdle if the clients expect you to have Hasselblads and full setups and you're starving and it's a $60,000 camera setup and you've got 3 roommates. And I'm like, how do I do this? I can use what I have. I sold and talked to the studio guy, and that's how it worked for me. But everybody's got their own angle.
Okay, one more quick question for each of you, and then we're going to jump to the giveaway. So, Mike, while you're on the camera, one more question. You've got one lens to use for the rest of your life. No other ones. What is it?
Can you hone down what I'm shooting pictures of?
Your favorite topic, whatever that is. Favorite subject.
Is it a zoom lens? Okay, hands down, without a question. I don't even really care at this stage of the game. A fixed 35mm prime lens, very fast 35mm prime lens is the lens I'd have. It's what we shoot 90% on anyway. It's flattering at the right distance for humans. It's wonderful for products. It's wonderful for boats. It's wonderful for trucks. It's got the right amount of distortion that gives some depth, where it doesn't flatten it out too much without being overly distorted. It's a fast 35mm prime lens is tough to beat.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, Kristen knows that. Chris knows, you guys know that. I'll take a 35mm prime over anything.
Jarrod, what's your answer?
Well, that's tough to disagree with, but given, I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but food is something that's very special to me. So I love shooting that. With food stuff, a 35 is good, but I really love the fixed 100mm macros for stuff like that. But Mike is absolutely right. The majority of stuff that I shoot, lifestyle or otherwise, a 35 to 50, 35 to 75 range is perfect for what we do.
Nice. Okay. Well, guys, I really appreciate your time today. Lots of amazing, input you shared with the group here. Priscilla, do you want to take this giveaway and
yeah, absolutely. So we have kind of a fun thing for the photographer in you. We have a really cool mug that looks like a camera lens. I'm sure you've seen them around, but we thought it would be really fun. And we thought we'd pair that with some really great local Onyx coffee. So nice in our backyard here in our region. So that's going to be one of our giveaways. But Mike, you have another giveaway that you're going to be doing. Can you tell us what it is? And I'll give away 2 prizes.
Sure, it can be variable, and I feel like I should have my game show voice on right now. It can be variable depending on the person's size. One of the wonderful apparel companies that we work for in the fishing and outdoors industry, Hook and Nomad Marilina Outdoors, they're a client, and they happily donated shirt, jacket, whatever fits from you from this last round of stuff that they're sending in right now. So if the winner happens to be a medium, we should have a medium, and they can get what they want. Just let me know, Priscilla, and we'll get them something wonderful. And it's great quality stuff for the summer.
Oh, how fun. Okay, so what I did was I've got, I only counted out Mike, Jarrod, and myself. So everybody who's in attendance, I have your name. So I'm just going to tell you your number real quick. I've assigned a number. If you're not on this list, be sure to speak up in the chat real quick. Number 1, Chris Wilson. 2, Andrew Tassett. 3, Brett Dalton. 4, Katie George. 5, Kristen Briglia. 6, Kaylin Welch. 7, Lindsay May. 8, Ryan St. Ange. 9, Tracy Hughes. 10, William Clift. 11, Joseph Geis. If you did not hear your name, can you quickly say something in the chat? So what I'm going to do right now then is I've got a random generator. I know it's hard to see, but here's my random generator. Okay, now you can see that there. So out of 1 to 11, I'm going to hit generate. The result is number 4. Number 4 is Katie George. So you get to choose from those clothing. And then now we're going to draw for the other prize. So for the coffee and the camera mug. So I will just hit generate one more time. Sorry, generate number 2, and that is Andrew Tassett. So Guys, without further ado, this actual recording will be on our website. Again, thank you to KSN KODE for sponsoring. Chris, awesome for putting this together. Mike and Jarrod, thank you for giving us your time. It really makes this club really belong to us, you know? So I really appreciate everything that you do. If you want to volunteer for AAF, please reach out to one of us. We would happily put you to work, and we want you to add to what we're doing. So thank you guys for making the time for Lunch and Learn. We'll be sending out all of the prizes here and hope to see you at next month's Lunch and Learn. Thanks, bye.